Hey Emily, how you doing, girl? It's your dad, Miguel. So today's the 21st of November, 2018, and hello. Hello. Thanks for clicking on the link. And wow, Thanksgiving is tomorrow, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I've got an appointment with a bunch of vegans down in Santa Barbara. We're gonna get together, have a potluck meal, and what's kind of interesting too is I'm loving Thanksgiving right now because I've actually already had at least two Thanksgiving meals with bunches of people, all vegans, during in potluck. Actually, no, the first one. Basically, these are Thanksgiving dinners. These are pre-Thanksgiving dinners that are planned, and people bring their own homemade food, and I'm so fortunate. So basically, what's happening is that by the end of Thanksgiving, I will have had three Thanksgiving meals. Not just one, right? But three. And I would have been around, I would guess, certainly over 100 people eating and feasting during Thanksgiving. So I really do feel fortunate to be in my position and have the opportunity to sit down and eat with all these people. And what's great about it for me is I'm solidifying relationships, developing friendships, developing my circle of friends, and and I'm doing so in an environment where there's acceptance and belonging, and it's really pleasant. It's really a pleasure, really, to be a part of this unfolding, and so super grateful right now about Thanksgiving and what it can bring. I also feel compassion. I know that there is a lot of people. I guess that there's a lot of people out there that just don't have the connection to friends or family that I do. And they're struggling right now. These are people who want to reach out. Maybe they're not extroverted like I am and have trouble reaching out. There's a lot of introverts out there in the world, particularly younger people. I'm thinking about millennials. I'm thinking about some members of Gen X who just don't have the social circles they need to sort of make ends meet in a holiday situation like we've got coming up tomorrow and over the next few days. So my heart goes out to those, the lonely. My heart also goes out to people who are going to be connecting with family members that they don't get along with, or be put in situations they don't care for. See, the holidays, there's this, there's this drive to sort of be near family members, and not everybody gets together very well. Some people just they don't have chemistry. And there's a lot of pain and suffering going on right now as people are confronting each other in their homes, and there's a lot of pain, a lot of emotional pain. And so I really feel for the emotional pain of these people who are getting together in their family circle, and struggling with it. A lot of non acceptance, a lot of judgment, a lot of emotional pain, as families, which are really known areas where people struggle, where people are really trying to make the best of a tough situation as they come together with their own families. So there's those who are separated from others, and those who are connected, but are connected in ways that are painful. And I really feel sorry for both groups of people, the lonely and the connected. And I'm trying to think if there are any other groups of people that might be struggling right now. Well, yeah, those people in lower socioeconomic classes. Maybe they're not lonely, or maybe they're not struggling in connect and in relationship. They just don't have money. They don't have the cash to create a holiday event that they think is that they want to have for their children or for their parents or for their family. So there's a lot of people suffering out there who just don't have the economic means to pull together a decent meal. And my compassion goes out to those people too. So, right now there's a lot of pain as it relates to the holiday season. And there's another kind of pain out there too. And it has to do with people who are struggling with too many commitments. I can imagine there are men and women out there, maybe mostly women, who are feeling the burden of pulling together a Thanksgiving dinner. There are high expectations nowadays, very high expectations for how food is prepared and how food is presented and when and where and how much. And, there are a lot of people who are struggling with the responsibility of pulling off a party. And pulling off a party is never an easy proposition, right? At the end, there's always cleanup. And in the beginning, there's preparation, there's making sure that you have enough ovens for the turkeys that you'll be cooking. It's about culinary skill. It's about how set up the kitchen is and whether you've got tables enough. There's a lot of organization. And there may be people out there who are under-resourced. That is, whether it's money or people or logistics, maybe it's time. Maybe they just don't have time to pull it all together and they're struggling. They are struggling hard to pull something together that will meet the expectations of their guests. So those people are suffering too. So huge amounts of suffering. The disconnected, the connected. The economic struggle and the struggle with time and responsibility. So, this is a special time, a time where people get together and celebrate. And, it's a time where people connect. And it's just so valuable to connect with other people. Human beings are social creatures. And so, there's a lot of meaning that surrounds this holiday. And so there's a lot of energy being it's a very dynamic holiday. And so anyway, my heart goes out to the people who just happen to be suffering right now. In fact, my guess is that a lot of people are suffering in silence. It's hard to have difficult conversations with the people you love, particularly family. And so, I don't know, I'm just feeling a lot of struggle right now. And I'm so grateful that even though I have my own personal struggles, which I struggle with every day, that for me at least, this holiday is mostly about celebration. It's about enjoyment and meeting new people and just having a blast, learning about new foods. Like last night, I was at a Thanksgiving potluck, and I had some amazing foods, and there's so many things to discover about the Thanksgiving feast that I ate. For example, I saw that there was a coconut whipped cream, a coconut-based whipped cream. I had no idea that even existed. Now, I just discovered that there is an almond-based whipped cream. So there's two kinds of whipped cream that I had no idea that existed 30 days ago. In fact, I even discovered that there's a cashew whipped cream. I discovered that. I wasn't able to sample it. But I sampled. But first of all, the coconut whipped cream is awesome. I just want to say that I'm a fan and a lover of whipped cream. I don't know if you're a lover of whipped cream too, but I am a lover of whipped cream. And I remember I used to eat it when I was just a standard American diet eater. I would have that dairy cream, and it comes in these bottles that have the flexible top, and it, oh yeah, that was good stuff. And I would just put this big old mound of whipped cream on my hot chocolate, or on my pancakes or anything like that. Ooh, whipped cream on pancakes. That's something I could actually pull together on Thanksgiving Day for breakfast. That sounds like a fantastic idea. And I can put some cinnamon on top. Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll go ahead and do that. That's a fantastic idea. Whipped cream and pancakes on Thanksgiving morning. That sounds real good. So, lots of discovery for me last night about the three kinds of alternative whipped creams. And I got to sample them, and I had pumpkin pie, which I think no, I think I've had pumpkin pie before, but I love pumpkin pie. There's something that I discovered about pumpkin pie that you might be interested in, Emily. I read a news article saying that in the canned pumpkin pie mixes, what they call pumpkin isn't always 100% pumpkin. In fact, quite often it's other kinds of squash, like butternut squash and, I don't know, maybe acorn squash. It's different squashes. And the author of the article talked about how the pumpkin flesh, is hard to blend into, say, a pumpkin pie mix. It's hard to make it smooth because pumpkins happen to be very stringy. And so quite often they'll add other kinds of squashes into the pumpkin pie mix, into the canned pumpkin pie mix to just make it more palatable. There's also a taste factor. Pumpkins apparently just don't taste very good. Or they don't taste as good as some other squash. Maybe other squash is sweeter. And so these other squash find themselves into this pumpkin puree, this canned pumpkin puree from the grocery store. So hilarious. There's probably going to be some kind of truth in advertising push going on now. Now that I've heard about it, I mean, I didn't know that pumpkin pie mix, I just assumed it was just all pumpkins. And to recognize that it's not, or to find out that it's not, that's quite a discovery. So for me, anyway, this holiday has been about learning. And anyway. So speaking of Thanksgiving, I mentioned earlier that I went to the library and I picked up this book. This is a book that I read, or partly read, when I was a kid. It's called Panatti's Extraordinary Origins of Everyday Things. And I've been reading a little bit in this book, and I really enjoy it, by the way. It's always fascinating, filled with trivial facts of every kind. And there's no question about why my eye was drawn to this book. It's just filled with a variety of interesting ideas. So yesterday I spoke briefly about the origins of Thanksgiving Day. And I was happy to know, or to find out, that very much of the legend is true when it comes to the Thanksgiving Day that happened at Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts in 1621. And I was fascinated by how peacefully the Native American Indians and the Pilgrims, how peacefully they were able to come together and eat. And I also made mention of how much death and dying was in the story. How maybe 50% of the Pilgrim travelers died. and how much sorrow there must have been surrounding the event, and how really it was needed. The celebration was needed to, raise the spirits, raise the morale of the people in the groups. So anyway, I did finish reading one part of the passage, and I just wanted to finish off the passage. And in this passage, it talks about the origins of turkey, cranberries, and pumpkin pie. So, by the way, I want you to know, even though I am vegan, I do remember tasting turkey, and I love turkey, particularly with lots of salt on it. And I love turkey and gravy. And I also love stuffing. Big fan of stuffing. Cornbread stuffing. I love stuffing. It's so good. And anyway, I just wanted to convey that I love the food elements of Thanksgiving. Now, I actually don't eat turkey anymore because I try to eat vegan. But I do have fond memories of eating turkey, and the high numbers of turkey sandwiches I ate after Thanksgiving because of the leftovers, right? So here we go. Let me read a little bit about turkeys, cranberries, and pumpkin pie. The 6 women who prepared the first Thanksgiving Day meal worked with the meager resources at hand, but they produced a varied menu with many of the elements that have since come to be traditional holiday fare. Despite popular legend, 2 major staples of a modern Thanksgiving meal, turkey and pumpkin pie, may not have been enjoyed at the Pilgrim's banquet. Though Governor Bradford sent 4 men fowling, they returned with a great store of wild turkeys. There's no proof that the catch included the bird we call a turkey. Wild turkeys did roam the woods of the Northeast, but the language of the 17th century pilgrims, turkey simply meant any guinea fowl, that is, any bird with a featherless head, rounded body, and dark feathers speckled white. It is certain, however, that the menu included venison, since other pilgrim recorded that Chief Messenois sent braves into the woods who killed 5 deer, which they brought to our governor. Watercress and leeks were on the table, along with bitter wild plums and dried berries, but there was no apple cider and no milk, butter, or cheese, since cows had not been aboard the Mayflower boat. And there was probably no pumpkin pie, or bread as we'd recognized it. Stores of flour from the ship had long since been exhausted, and years would pass before significant quantities of wheat were successfully cultivated in New England. Without flour for a pie crust, there could be no pie. But the Pilgrims did enjoy pumpkin at the meal. Boiled pumpkin. The cooks concocted an ersatz bread, boiling corn, which was plentiful. They kneaded it into round cakes and fried it in venison fat. There were 15 young boys in the company, and during the 3-day celebration, they gathered wild cranberries, which the women boiled and mashed into a sauce for the meal's meats. The following year brought a poor harvest and boatloads of new immigrants to house and feed. The Pilgrims staged no Thanksgiving feast. In fact, after that first plentiful and protracted meal, the Pilgrims never regularly celebrated a Thanksgiving Day. Such tragedy. So they did have a Thanksgiving Day meal on that day, but then there were really no subsequent Thanksgiving meals, at least for that subgroup of people. So I'll continue. It says a national holiday. October 1777 marked the first time all the 13 colonies joined in a common Thanksgiving celebration, and the occasion commemorated the patriotic victory over the British at Saratoga. It too, however, was a one-time affair. The first national Thanksgiving proclamation was issued by President George Washington in 1789, the year of his inauguration, but discord among the colonies prevented the executive order from being carried out. For one thing, many Americans felt that the hardships endured by the mere handful of early settlers were unworthy of commemoration on a national scale. Certainly, the brave new nation had nobler events that merited celebration. On this theme, President Thomas Jefferson went so far as to actively condemn a national recognition of Thanksgiving during his 2 terms. Oh man. The establishment of the day we now celebrate nationwide was largely the result of the diligent efforts of magazine editor Sarah Joseph Hale. Mrs. Hale started her one-woman crusade for a Thanksgiving celebration in 1821 while she was editor of the extremely popular Boston Ladies magazine. Her hortatory editorials argued for the observance of a national Thanksgiving holiday, and she encouraged the public to write to their local politicians. Okay, I think we can stop there. Amazing, amazing. I can't believe how much I'm learning from these passages. Wow. Okay, so there may have been no turkey on the table, certainly no pumpkin pie because, well, there was no wheat. Amazing stuff. Now, they probably had venison, they had deer, and they had some kind of bird, right? It may not have been turkey, but then it might have been. Pretty amazing. No bread. Wow. Can you imagine having Thanksgiving without bread? I can imagine it. I think, yeah, there was no bread at my last Thanksgiving, although I did have pasta. So pretty amazing stuff. And George Washington, I guess, had an executive order, but it wasn't promulgated. And there was a subsequent president, Jefferson, who argued that having a Thanksgiving Day was not a good idea throughout his 2 terms. And it wasn't until, 1821? Mrs. Hale from the Ladies Magazine, Sarah Josepha Hale, 1827. Okay, so from 1620 to 1827, 200 years passed before the idea of Thanksgiving was even taken seriously. And it wasn't even taken seriously by the Pilgrims, who had one feast and then didn't have another. Amazing. It's really fascinating. We really take for granted. I think we take for granted the holidays and their origin. 1821, well, it's true. It was 200 years ago. But that Thanksgiving holiday, it struggled. It's been 400 years. And it took 200 of those years for Thanksgiving to even get a foothold in our culture as something to celebrate about. And in fact, what's interesting today is that there are still counterforces in our culture who that are arguing that Thanksgiving Day is not the right holiday to celebrate. In fact, I think a lot of people are thinking about substituting World Indigenous Day for Thanksgiving. Now, I don't care either way. Whether I'm celebrating the Pilgrims or celebrating World Indigenous Day, to me, it doesn't matter. I'm just loving to celebrate. And for me, the learning about the history of the holiday and enjoying the legend of the holiday, that's what gives me my joy. And I can have the same joy whether it's celebrating Pilgrims or celebrating the indigenous. And I'll celebrate whatever makes sense to celebrate. I can find in both holidays, the existing and the proposed, reasons to celebrate. In fact, I would be interested to know about other indigenous cultures and learn more about them. And so wouldn't it be interesting if it were a mix of those kind of, it could be just sort of like some kind of joint holiday. We'll see how it turns out. So anyway, neat stuff. Thank you, Panati. In fact, what is this Panati anyway? Who is this? Charles Panati. I might need to learn a little bit more about Charles Panati and see what he's up to, what got him to write these books. Anyway, let's see. Might as well do our question and answer period. Let's get that started. So Q&A sessions are about you getting to learn a little bit more about me. They are me answering questions that I've got on my Kindle here. If there's an ebook that has a list of questions, I'm just going through all of them so that you get to learn about me and know me a little bit better. So the first question is question number 350. What would you do if you had a whole year off? Ooh, boy. I love this idea of having freedom to do anything I want. Because, being alive means that I've got to take care of a lot of tasks, daily tasks. I call them, what do I call these daily tasks? It's just logistics is what I call them. That's just my umbrella term for the work that all people have to do just to stay alive, right? To drink water, to eat food, to go to work so that they can have clothing and shelter and warmth. And so now if I had a vacation, what would I do? A 1-year vacation. Well, realistically, I'd probably do a lot more traveling than I'm doing. That is, if I had the money. I would probably sort of meander around California and the South. A year is a lot of time, but it's not a whole heck of a lot of time. I think I might be a little more relaxed. I think I might read a lot more books. So travel and books. I'd probably also meet a lot more people. I tend to be an extrovert. And one of the big things that prevents me from meeting new people is just time. I'm constrained by time. Just what's happened in the last 2 weeks, right? I've had 2 pre-Thanksgiving dinners, and I'm about to go to my 3rd one tomorrow. To total 3 Thanksgiving dinners. I'm meeting all kinds of amazing people, and I would be involved in meeting more people if I could. I just don't have the time. I'm a full-time person who works. I'm a person who works full-time, and I'm also nearly a part-time student. I'm taking a couple classes, and so I just don't have all the time in the world. For example, today mostly I'll be at work all day, and then I'll go to school. I'll be in my machining class for 3 hours tonight. I just don't have time to go out and do stuff. Even though I know tonight there's a special party going on in Santa Maria that I know I'll be missing. Although now that I think about it, I might be able to squeeze it in. And then I also have my workouts at the gym, so I'm super duper busy. Now, if I had a full year to just do whatever I wanted, yeah, I would travel, I'd read books, I'd meet a lot more people that I'm meeting now. I might learn some recreational skills, like activities like stand-up paddleboard and do some more canoeing. That sounds interesting to me. I think I might even spend more time in the gym. Believe it or not, the time I spend in the gym, sometimes it feels constrained. If only I had the luxury of being inside the gym, say 2.5 hours. But I don't always have that luxury, right? I don't always have that time. What else would I do? That's probably it. I probably visit a lot more museums, like art museums and natural history museums and science museums. That reminds me, that's something that I want to do. Maybe this coming holiday, I've got some days off. Oh, I also want to go. I also want to go to the forest. I've been thinking about going to the Los Padres National Forest and hanging around out there. And so anyway, I think I'd probably be doing low-key things like that if I had a year off. All right, next question. Question number 351. Do you like to text message? Yeah, I do. I probably send 1 or 2 text messages on average a day, which is probably not very much compared to most people and how many texts they send. I love text messages. I love how quick those messages sort of pass through the fog of communication. And I like text messaging. I like it more than telephone calls. Okay, question number 352. How many text messages do you get in a day? How many text messages do I get? About the same, maybe 1 or 2 on average. Now, of course, I've had days where I've gotten tens and tens of text messages. I hear stories of people like sending and receiving hundreds of text messages a day. Who are these people? I have no idea who these people are. I'm not sure that I could survive and thrive getting 100 text messages a day. That's pretty amazing. People throw around that number 100 so casually. I don't know. It seems unrealistic. I'm happy if I get 1 or 2 text messages a day. Maybe I'll get 3 or 4 in a conversation. Maybe I'll get 5, maybe even 10 on some days, but certainly not 100. I'm not that much of a user. Let's see. Partly the reason is because if there's an exchange of maybe 2 or 3 text messages, I'll tend to pick up the phone because clearly we've got to convey a conversation. There's a conversation that needs to take place. And so I'm fine on the phone, fine face to face. In fact, to some extent, I prefer those mediums. It depends on the context. Most contexts, text messages are just great. And other contexts, phone messages are preferred, and then face to face after that. Okay, next question. Question number 353. Are you a phone person or a texting person? And like I mentioned earlier, it depends on context. Question number 354. Have you spoken on the phone for an entire night? No, I haven't. Now, I've spoken on the phone for a long time. I've had phone conversations that last 2 hours at a time. And let me tell you, those are rough. It's hard to keep your mind focused on a telephone conversation for 2 hours. It just is. It's just the human brain is not outfitted for that kind of activity. So yeah, I've had long telephone conversations before, but not all night. So there's a caveat there. Question number 355. If someone dropped money, would you keep it or give it back? Well, I would totally give it back if I could find the owner, that's for sure. Question number 355. 356. Have you assisted an elderly person cross the road? Well, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people do. It's probably, for me at least, and recently, I haven't necessarily done it explicitly like one would imagine it happen. But, I assist elderly people all the time by stepping out of their way, by helping them find the electric carts that they need to, say, go shopping. Other things that I'll do to assist is, say, if I'm driving I'll be extra patient as they cross the crosswalk. You know, there are a lot of ways to help a person, an elderly person, cross the road, and not just your standard traditional way. Next question. Question number 357. Have you ever ridden a horse? And yeah, in fact, my dad used to own horses. In Taos, New Mexico, we had a property 7 acres large. We had horses in and around the property, and we had like a corral that dad made. And so yeah, dad would ride horses on our property on his own land. And you know, and I was there. I'd ride horses with him, on the saddle in front of him, on the saddle behind him, and even all by myself I would ride horses. But let me tell you what, I never really did have a lot of confidence on a horse, and never did I really go unsupervised. Remember, I was just a kid when I had a lot of horses around. So all of my horse riding was very closely supervised. Question number 358. Have you ever made an important sacrifice? Describe it. Yeah, I make important sacrifices all the time. I tend to be a giver. You know, there are different kinds of people, different kinds of personalities. You know, there are people who are takers, who are always asking for stuff. I'm not that kind of person. Then there are people who are what I'd call transactional, where they'd receive something and they'd give something, or they'd give and then expect receiving. You know, they're very transactional, right? They're keeping score. And I'm not like that either. You know, and I'll play the transaction game here and there. But the game that I really like to play, the game that it seems that my personality is particularly geared for, is just the giving game. It makes me not a very good negotiator, sadly. So I'm a giver. So there's the takers, the transactional people, and then the givers, and that's just what I do. That's just my personality. And over the years, I've just tried to accept this part of me. I'm just a giver. You know, I will offer, I will invite, I will, and you know what? What that creates is also a life of loss. You know, and you know, that's really just my personality. So, what was the question again? Oh, have you ever made an important sacrifice? Well, I don't know. Important sacrifice. It's hard to convey and figure out what an important sacrifice might be. But when it comes to personality types, I tend to be a giver. All right, next question. Question number 359. Are you related to a celebrity or know a friend who is? So, I am related to a celebrity of sorts. So, I was born in Espanola, New Mexico. My dad was born in Taos, New Mexico. And his family, there are certain people who are, you know, over the last 100, 200, 300 years, there have been significant figures that have sort of arisen amongst my family. And one of them is the explorer and trapper Kit Carson. So if you ever have an interest, Emily, in learning more about, say, the ancestry of my family, we are related to Kit Carson somehow. I think Kit Carson at one time married a Pueblo woman, which was like my great-great-grandmother or something like that. So, so Kit Carson. Is there any other notable person who I'm related to? Not that I know of. Kit Carson is one that comes up pretty quickly because it's a fairly recent connection to fame. Now, here's the thing. I'm not necessarily promoting or advocating or indicating that Kit Carson was an admirable character. I think I think his story is romanticized, and I think that there are a lot of voices that want to be heard in relation to the Kit Carson story. And here's the thing. I plead ignorance on the subject. I haven't done any research on the subject, and I even only vaguely am aware of who Kit Carson is. So don't let me don't don't let my words be construed to be speaking of with authority with about who he is. But some people have told me that he is famous. He's famous in the same way that Davy Crockett is famous, right? Or Johnny Appleseed, or Boone. Boone, I forget his first name. These Western heroes of the past, right? Okay. Is there anyone else famous who I'm related to? That's an interesting question. No one else comes to mind right now. Kit Carson, I think, is probably the most prominent one. Okay, question number 360. Do you consistently correct a person's mistakes? I'll read that question again. Do you constantly correct a person's mistakes? Well, and the answer is no, I don't constantly correct a person's mistakes. That's certainly not my personality type. If I notice a mistake has been made, what I will typically do is I will offer up a suggestion indicating that things might work out better if we did this or that. That's how I approach so-called mistakes. This idea of a mistake is a judgment. And also there's this idea that I have to prevent mistakes or take action to correct others. I'll bring ideas to people's attention, and I'll describe rationale and reasons why I think a certain issue needs to be addressed. And I'll take action those ways. And I'll bring other people in, other stakeholders and shareholders into the conversation that may be impacted by one or other decisions. So I'm not correcting mistakes as much as I'm sort of adjusting strategy and technique. And I'm often doing it as a part of some kind of consensus building activity. It's a consensus building effort. Yeah. I think that's a lot more reasonable, a lot more logical, a lot more realistic about what's going on. Question number 361. Have you nursed an animal back to health? And I can't say that I have, other than say maybe a pet dog or something like that, or some kind of pet. Come to think of it, when I was growing up, I had a lot of dogs. I don't remember personally me being involved in taking the pet to the veterinarian. That maybe that was a task that my parents did. That might be true. But when it came to me actually nursing an animal, I'll tell you about the animals that I do nurse, if I do nurse any animal to health. Quite often it's insects. I do like an insect rescue out of my bathtub, like spiders, and there's beetles and things like that find their ways into my kitchen or to my living room, and I will rescue them. I will rescue flies that enter the cab of my vehicle, and I'll really are bees, and try to ensure their safety, make sure that they exit the window in one piece. And so I care about that. So it's probably those kind of animals, insects, and maybe smaller insects like lizards and things like that. And I'll make efforts to rescue them when they get lost or stuck. Okay, question number 362. Do you go to the park and feed birds? No, I don't. I do not do that. I do not go to the park and feed birds. Next question. Question number 363. Do you like children? And yeah, sure, I like children. I was a child at one time. So yeah, sure I do. Question number 364. Would you like to have any someday? I already have one. I've got you, Emily. I've got a beautiful 14-year-old daughter right now. Couldn't be happier. All right, next question. Question number 365. Do you ever give money to the homeless? And yeah, I do sometimes give money to the homeless. Absolutely. You know, I have given money and supplies to the homeless. They're around. They're around. They're always sort of out in front of storefronts or along the side of the road. Sometimes I strike up a conversation with them. You know. Question number 366. Are you allergic to food or any product? So I don't believe that I'm allergic to any food. I don't recall ever having an allergic reaction to food. Now, I have had an allergic reaction like hay fever. Sometimes I get hay fever during the wintertime or during the spring. And I haven't really been able to figure out what is giving me the allergic reaction. And I know that it doesn't last for very long. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I'll have like a running nose or itchy eyes, and here and there maybe I will take something for it, like I'll take some kind of antihistamine, and it works. And so I just move on with my day. It hasn't been a big problem. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really grateful that it hasn't been a big problem. Okay, question number 367. How ticklish are you? I'm slightly ticklish. I just don't necessarily care to be tickled, actually. But I'm fine with it. Question number 368. Do you like tea? And yeah, I totally like tea. Some of my favorite teas, well, one favorite tea that I'm enjoying really a lot right now is Constant Comet, which is, I don't know, it's a decaffeinated black tea, and it's got an orange flavor, or like some kind of orange flavor in it. It's really good. Yeah, I think it's by Bigelow, which is the tea brand. I also really like Celestial Seasonings tea. And in fact, one of my favorite Celestial Seasonings tea is a lemon and honey flavored green tea, decaffeinated. And I love that stuff. I'll just throw a tea bag into a water bottle and, shake it up. And 3 minutes later, I'm chugging that down. It tastes so good. In fact, I've got this one thing I drink a lot of is like Crystal Light. And I've been trying to stay away from that because of a lot of the artificial ingredients. And at least recently, I've been trying to sort of reduce my consumption of Crystal Light because it's gotten a little bit crazy in the sense that I might have like 2 Crystal Light packets a day. Now, I know that sounds like not a lot, but to me, that's actually kind of a lot. And so I've been trying to drink water that's flavored with herbal tea now. And it's been working. So I'm very pleased to say that over the last few days, I haven't had any Crystal Light packets. So for me, that represents a victory. I happen to think that drinking herbal tea is just slightly more healthy than drinking these Crystal Light packets. And for that very reason, for reasons of my health, and its preservation, I've decided to drink herbal tea. And so I'm enjoying that. Some other herbal teas or teas that I enjoy are Earl Grey. Earl Grey is also a black tea. It's a decaffeinated black tea, the one that I drink. Really enjoy that oil of bergamot, which is also an orange oil, which is interesting. I really like the orange flavor. Clearly, that's part of my tongue, my palate that I really enjoy and appreciate. I love oranges. So that may be why Constant Comment and Earl Grey are teas that are important to me. Other teas that I enjoy are like spearmint and peppermint. So really these wintertime teas that are coming out, they're sort of like this chai tea with mint blend. I mean, I'm really enjoying these teas. I'm loving the cinnamon and nutmeg and pumpkin spice and allspice and all these really warm spices intermingled with peppermint flavor. That gets me going. I'm really enjoying that right now. And you know what? Another kind of tea that I really like are the red zingers. Essentially those are hibiscus teas. And so there's a lot of different kinds. Like there's a lemon zinger, which is like a lemon hibiscus, or I guess some kind of. Here's the thing about hibiscus teas is that they're often quite sour. And I've been enjoying not just the red zinger and the lemon zinger, but I've also been enjoying the raspberry zinger too. So I love the zingers, the celestial seasoning zingers with the hibiscus tea flavors. Good stuff. So I love hibiscus, I love the decaffeinated green tea, I love chamomile, I love the decaffeinated black teas, particularly with the orange flavors. So as you can tell, I'm starting to get energetic here. I'm a lover of herbal teas and just teas in general. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm talking decaffeinated teas mostly, so that's where I am. I'm also and have been known to enjoy the occasional iced tea. Particularly, I'll drink the decaffeinated iced tea that's available from Lipton. There are iced tea crystals out there, and I'll definitely enjoy a glass of iced tea. Now, what's interesting, what I've been noticing lately about my palate and how it's been changing as it relates to drinks I've been drinking, I've been enjoying coffee lately. And the thing about coffee is that it's a very robust, rich, complex flavor. And it's quite often, because these coffee beans are roasted, there's this deep carbon flavor too. So coffee's like this really deep, complex, robust flavor. And it contrasts with herbal teas. Herbal teas are quite often not that complex unless you are drinking a chai tea variant. And they are significantly lighter. The flavor is subtle, right? And sometimes teas are not that complex of a flavor. Quite often they have an enjoyable bitterness or an enjoyable sourness in the case of hibiscus teas. Quite often some are grassy, what I describe as grassy. For example, chamomile teas and green teas are very grassy, and they're very light. So there's this interesting contrast between coffee and tea right now. And what I'm noticing is that as I begin to lean toward drinking more coffee, I'm finding that they're basically anti-polar type drinks. They're on opposite sides of the spectrum. And so I'm developing an ability to appreciate both. So I'm excited about that. All right, let's see what else. So I think that probably answers the question, do I like tea? And the answer is most clearly yes, I like tea of all kinds. Okay, next question. Question number 369. Do you like cocoa? And oh yeah, I sure do. I do love cocoa. I love my chocolate milk. In fact, believe it or not, I have chocolate milk all the time. Now, I guess the question is, do you like cocoa? That question is somewhat ambiguous, I'm just noticing, because cocoa is a word that describes hot chocolate, but cocoa is also a word that describes just the chocolate nut, right? The basically cacao, right? Ground cacao. So I'm not sure which one they're talking about. I'm guessing that they're talking about hot chocolate. So I'm going to talk about hot chocolate. So I've got hot chocolate K cups in my office, in my cubicle. I enjoy that stuff. And especially in the wintertime, I really enjoy some hot cocoa with marshmallows. Oh yeah. I've had a lot of good experiences with hot cocoa. And I really remember what happened at Starbucks. Starbucks at one time had a drinking chocolate, which I appreciate. And wow, I wonder if Starbucks is going to bring drinking chocolate back. I might definitely have to give that a try. Love the drinking chocolate from Starbucks. Love the hot cocoa, and believe it or not, I have hot cocoa all the time myself. And this is how I do it. I pay very close attention to the calories that I eat. Hershey's has got this sugar-free syrup that is like free candy in the sense that it's a very low-calorie chocolate syrup that tastes good. And so I've really been enjoying pouring myself a glass of almond milk and then squeezing some Hershey sugar-free syrup in there, stirring it up and making some chocolate milk. Let me tell you, it's super creamy, super good, and costs almost no calories, and I'm loving it. Now, there are also options for chocolate milk that are available to those who want to eat vegan like myself. I know that Silk, the soy milk company, offers a chocolate milk, which is very good. But I just tend not to get it very often because it also has a lot of sugar in it. And basically, it has a lot of calories. And basically, my tendency is to buy foods with fewer calories because I enjoy eating. I really enjoy eating all kinds of foods. And if I had, say, just one Reese's peanut butter cup, that might represent like 150, 200 calories. And there's so much more that I can do with, say, an extra 200 calories. Like I can have like 10 salads with wonderful dressing. For me, food is about an exchange. And so the high calorie foods I stay away from because I'm exploring and enjoying lots of low calorie foods because they're quite filling, partly, and also partly because they're just something to gnaw on and to chew on. So, Emily, I do like chocolate milk, and I also want to wrap things up. So, Em, thank you very much for spending some time with me and letting me talk at length about the foods that I like to enjoy and the holiday season. I hope you have a wonderful holiday tomorrow. Thank you for spending some time with me exploring the origins of the legend and the origins of the holiday. Over the last 400 years, our conversation has spanned. I want to say that I love you. I love you just the way you are. I cherish our relationship. You are important to me. What you were thinking and feeling is important to me. I want you to know that I respect you, that I care about what you think, and that I want you to live a life of continued happiness I'm looking forward to a future where you can find greater fulfillment and enjoyment in your life. And I'm also looking forward to a future when we can connect in a deeper way. And so that keeps me happy, upbeat, hopeful, optimistic for the future. And in fact, that's just my personality anyway. So anyway, I love you and peace.